Tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about techniques that can help protect your assets from long-term care expenses last minute. Todd, what happens to your home when a spouse enters a nursing home and no planning has been done? And is it different for single individuals?
Yeah, so very good question, and the answer is yes, it is different. So let's talk about the spouse first. When you're married, if you have a spouse living in the home, regardless of the value of the home, as long as it's located in Massachusetts, it's non-countable. And it's non-lienable. So it's really, truly protected. Now, don't leave it that way. Make sure you put it 100% in the name of the healthy spouse after that happens. However, for a single individual, it's a little different. As long as the value doesn't exceed $1,071,000, there's a number that changes every year. It goes up. Then it would be countable if it's worth more than that. If it's worth less than that, and you check a box that you intend to return home, it's non-countable, but it's lienable. But so what? Getting on the Medicaid at the Medicaid rate is better than paying privately.
Todd Lutzke and the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that details last-minute Medicaid eligibility. You can request this brand new guide by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can simply request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
It's Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you here on the Financial Exchange. Hope you had a great President's Day weekend. As we kind of kick into high gear in February 2025 here, the United States and Canada spiraling towards a trade war, according to the Wall Street... Wait, Michael. It says August 23rd, 2026. We've already seen this show. Why are we doing this again 16 months later?
So we are looking like we are heading back towards some trade fiasco with Canada. We were allegedly nearing a deal as of Tuesday or Wednesday of last week.
Seemed like things were going to get across the finish line, yeah.
And then suddenly broke down on Friday. Canada called their trade negotiators back to Ottawa. And here we sit with tariffs imposed on, what is it, $20 billion worth of Canadian goods. It's about 5% of what comes over the border being slapped with tariffs, and Canada reciprocating with tariffs of their own that are due to go in place soon after Labor Day weekend. So a little bit of time to get something done, but not a ton. And the question is, will this be resolved in a week, or will we head into what the Wall Street Journal describes as a spiral, which we've seen with several other trade negotiations here. And quite honestly, I'd call it a coin flip. I have no idea.
I don't know that we've actually seen a spiral.
With Canada or with other countries?
Any of them.
Yeah, I mean,
like
the thing that I can most closely call a spiral was with China when we ended up with 130% tariffs at one point that lasted like a month and a half.
Yes.
And even that, I mean, spiral would indicate that one of the economies is heading down the toilet, and that didn't really happen. So I don't know that we get there with Canada either. I suspect that it all is negotiating tactics on both sides, and again, I would consider it a coin flip as to whether or not we head towards higher rates of tariffs or a resolved deal in the next 30 days.
The reason I say that I don't think we've ever gotten to a spiral is, again, aside from that very brief period where the U.S. and China were, raising tariffs on each other.
Did we hit 200%? What was the highest rate of tariff that we saw, which was completely meaningless?
I have no idea because it was never actually imposed.
True.
It was like, okay, like it's based on like the date of departure, not date of entry, and so like those goods never
your
got.
tariff's going to be 80%. Well, yours going to be 100. It was like a preschool game of, well, your tariff is infinity.
Infinity plus one.
Yeah.
Yours is more.
Yeah.
Yours is the whole universe.
No takesies backsies.
You can't double stamp or triple stamp.
I have a buddy of mine
Triple
from
stamp or double
college
stamp?
who
I can't remember.
you can't triple stamp a double stamp.
Yeah, there you go.
Because you can't. But I would have digressed too far.
Okay, fair.
Honestly, I can't get excited about this.
The U.S.-Canada tit-for-tat tariffs?
I don't care. And it's not because this isn't potentially meaningful. It's potentially meaningful. What's like the average length of tariff at this point?
I don't know. Not long. I feel for you if you are listening to us from Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, or anywhere else in the country that's a border state or area.
Matter.
Yeah, no, it matters for you, especially if you work in the tourism industry in any of those spaces, because regardless of what gets negotiated, from what I have heard, plenty of tourism-focused industries have seen a meaningful shift in willingness of Canadians to travel to the U.S. and do these types of activities, and that might not be immediately fixed by a negotiated trade deal, and so I feel for those folks. I think that part is impactful regardless of where we negotiate, but to your point, it's pretty tough to get concerned or excited about something like this when we've seen it a dozen times in the last 6 months?
Yeah, well, it's
no,
just
18
like,
months? When did we start all this? April?
18 months ago.
Okay.
It's just like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, as someone looking at this broadly for the U.S. and world economy.
Buy up all the hockey sticks you can now.
It's too late. It's too late, okay? And I suck at hockey. So I think that in looking at this, I'm honestly just tired. Because it's like, okay, I could spend the next 20 minutes explaining to people exactly what this means, and then it can all be undone by the end of this week, and now I've wasted all of our time. So here's the deal. If you have higher tariffs in place from any country to another country, it means that the cost of goods is going to go up with goods coming from that country into the receiving country. Plain and simple, full stop. The company that pays the tariffs is the one that's importing the goods, so it ultimately is just, okay, are they going to choose to pass that on or see lower margins? We know this, by the way, because of the tariff refunds that are going on now, and we also know this because of the waiver of tariffs on a certain amount of, I think it's like 300,000 metric tons of beef imports that the president waived last week because he wanted to reduce the price of beef in the United States. So everyone and their grandmother knows that tariffs increase the cost of a good if it's actually applied to them. We saw this in the data last year, where if you look at stuff that doesn't get made in the U.S., most namely, the one place we saw it very clearly, audiovisual equipment, because no one makes TVs in the United States.
True.
Because it's economically dumb to do so. Not saying that we shouldn't have some that are made here. I'm just saying economically it doesn't make sense, and so we don't make them here. And so the price of audiovisual equipment went up like 15% last summer, which is, okay, basically what the tariff rate was on the countries that we largely import these things from. Got it. Other than that, I'm not going to get involved in like the he said, she said, because
None of us were there.
None of us were there. And honestly, if I'm being completely like transparent about this, I only have time for one of those at a time. And right now I'm fully focused on the Fed versus the Treasury. I got to be honest, that is so much more interesting to me than whatever is going on here. So maybe a deal gets worked out, maybe it doesn't. I don't really know, but I can't spend any more mental capital on this. And as Mike said, look, I'm freaking sorry for like the businesses that do have relationships cross-border that are feeling like they're just being ping-ponged back and forth, because that sucks.
Yep, especially because they're mostly small businesses. That's not a good place to be. Auto industry would be particularly hard hit if this escalates. They tend to ship vehicles back and forth across the U.S. and Mexican border.
Canadian.
U.S., Mexican, and Canadian borders.
Well, this is Canada, though.
Yeah. Dozen times during the manufacturing process, hugely problematic. Historically speaking, when this is flared up, U.S. alcohol industry has taken a hit. That's been targeted by the Canadians. Enough said, right? Like, where else are we going to go with this? It could be resolved in 24 hours. It could escalate. If it escalates, there's some key areas that are probably more hurt than others.
So, that's the situation between the U.S. and Canada. We'll see how it evolves over the next week or two, month or two. Again, I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but it's just, again, I woke up and I was like, we're literally back in February of 2025. And honestly, wasn't my favorite month in markets. It just wasn't. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, Scott Bessent's got a piece that he put in the Financial Times. We'll discuss the piece, but I also want to discuss why he put it in the Financial Times next.
The Financial Exchange streams every day live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and follow the markets all morning long. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Retirement isn't just one stage of life. It changes over time, and your home should change with it. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. You may have heard of the go-go years when you're traveling and enjoying the freedom you've worked so hard to earn. Then come the slow-go years when convenience starts to matter more, and eventually the no-go years when safety and support take center stage. Our new guide, Navigating Retirement Housing Choices, shows you how different housing options can fit each stage of retirement. From staying in your home to downsizing to exploring elder life communities, you'll learn what questions to ask before you're forced to make a decision. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or request the guide at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. One day, you're living in your own home. The next, you can't return home after rehab. Now, you're faced with a nursing home bill of more than $14,000 a month and wondering how you're going to pay for it. These situations can occur without warning, but Cushing & Dolan can help. Before you make any major decisions, get the facts. Cushing & Dolan's new guide, Last-Minute Medicaid Eligibility, explains common misconceptions about Medicaid, what assets may or may not be at risk, and why the first answer you receive isn't always your only option. Call right now, 866-848-5699, and get your free copy of Last-Minute Medicaid Eligibility. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide online at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
In a heartbeat, you could be the difference.
Mark collapsed from cardiac arrest.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive.
It took 30 minutes of chest compressions to finally feel a pulse.
Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. But together, we can change that. Extraordinary things happen when people take action. A small step, a simple skill, a life-saving moment. HeartWalk brings communities together to create health and hope for every heartbeat. Every walker who joins HeartWalk, every dollar donated, means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local Heart Walk. Extraordinary starts with you. Join Heart Walk today. Find your local Heart Walk at heartwalk.org.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Daily financial content in your feed when you want it. Follow the Financial Exchange on Instagram. This is the Financial Exchange.
All right, Scott Bessent is the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Over the weekend, yesterday actually, he published an op-ed in the Financial Times. It's titled, "An Economic D-Day is Coming for Iran." And in it, he basically outlines, look, it is time for the United States to enact, stricter measures, not just against the Iranian regime, but on those who support it economically, such as those who, buy oil from it, facilitate commerce with it, and so on and so forth. So there's a few things to take from that. But before we get there, Michael, what do you know about the Financial Times?
Pink.
It's pink. British, yes. Who's the primary readership of the Financial Times?
Financial media, heavily European, but
also Asian. Like it's big overseas. Like I dare you to find, outside of people that work directly in finance, I dare you to find a single human being who reads the Financial Times in the United States.
Agreed.
There's probably like 12 of them, and they're weird.
I think I'd be unaware that people outside of financial or business read it overseas either. But maybe that's more the case.
But it's just it's not even in the United States. Like you could see someone who says, "Hey, I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, but I'm not in finance."
Correct. The Financial Times is read by the guy in the suit on the commuter rail. I mean, not anymore,
it's
but
more,
they used to be, carrying the action. I called it pink because the pages were actually shaded pink.
But it's an international publication.
Yes.
And so the medium is somewhat the message in this case, in that Scott Bessent could go to any paper in the world and say, "I want to publish this," and they will say, "Great. We'll put it, right at the front of the op-ed section."
Yep.
Maybe even put it on the front page. Like, got it. But he chose the Financial Times because he knows the audience that reads it. He didn't pick the Wall Street Journal. He didn't pick the New York Times.
It was very much dedicated towards an international audience.
Correct. Like it wasn't meant to be read in the United States. So this then gets to the question of, okay, so you've now told the international audience this. And I'll quote here just because I want to really hone in on it, because there's one paragraph that I think is the message. Iran's enablers purchase and transport its petroleum. They facilitate the flow of its finances through exchange houses and free trade zones. They welcome Iran's flights and maintain registries on its behalf. They turn a blind eye to seaborne fuel transfers and the illicit use of their banks, all while concealing the extent of their complicity. In short, these countries calculate appeasement of the regime to be the safer course, but they would do well to consider the consequences of sustaining it. So basically outlining, hey, these are the things with which we have a problem, and now we're going to do something about it, not just sanction the Iranian regime. But there's there's another paragraph in this that caught my eye, and it's the one immediately after that I have to get into because I there's two different readings of it, and one is charitable, and a charitable reading of it's like, okay, this is fine. A non-charitable is like, whoa, that's aggressive. And here it is. In the 17th century, French philosopher, I'm not great with like French names actually. Is it Blaise? Is it Blaise or is it Blaise? I
think it's Blaise.
I like Blaise, but it's Blaise. Blaise Pascal gave enduring expression to the dilemma beneath this temptation. So Pascal, again, lived in the mid-1600s, and Pascal's wager is a famous argument, basically for people to believe in God. That's what's being referenced here. Basically, the premise is, okay, if you hypothesize that a God either exists or does not exist, the downside of believing in God is far less than the downside of not, because of, eternal damnation and everything. And so most people at some point in their life choose to believe in God because there's not really any, visible downside to doing so. So keep that in mind when you're hearing about Pascal's wager here. In the 17th century, French philosopher Blaise Pascal gave enduring expression to the dilemma beneath this temptation. He understood that uncertainty does not absolve men or nations of divine judgment. And basically the reason he argued is look, when you die, if you didn't believe in God and there is one, you're going to be way worse off than the other. In fact, it demands a more exacting appraisal of risk and imposes a higher price for its error. Pascal's eponymous wager now applies to Iran's lifelines. So the charitable way to read this is he's saying, look, when you all come to meet your maker at the end, you're going to wish that you had not enabled a regime like this. The uncharitable way of reading it is, hey, now you're dealing with us and judgment is coming.
The U.S. is your maker? Is that the reading?
I read it the first time and I read it that way and I was like, I'm not sure about that. And then I read it the other way, but either way, it's a powerful statement for him to be making.
Sure.
When we're talking about the word choice and the selection of
you're comparing a bunch
topic.
Of politicians' actions to eternal damnation.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's just a question, I think, of who is meting out the judgment in this case. But it's kind of like, okay, so you're saying that you're serious. But now we get to the same point that we got to with Kevin Warsh a couple months ago, which is you're going to have to prove that you're serious.
Yeah.
Because talk is cheap. And in Kevin Warsh's case, the question that's now being asked is, hey, you just Jerome Powell dressed up with, different clothes and a different tie? Or do you actually have something you're going to do differently? And in this case, with Scott Bessent, it's going to be, okay, are you serious about this? Or is this going to be something that you threaten but ultimately don't go forward with because you can't deal with the economic consequences domestically?
I'll also raise the most a pretty important question with all of this. Does any of it matter if China sticks to their guns on what they said last week? Because what they said last week is, screw you.
So here,
correct me if don't let me missummarize the words of that Chinese minister that spoke out. I don't remember precisely who spoke, but it was basically, we don't care. We're going to keep operating the way we are. And so if you convince, I don't know, the Philippines to no longer purchase as much Iranian oil, does it matter?
Well,
it's not an economic D-Day if you don't stop China.
Correct. The question, is there what is the attempt going to actually be, and what's it going to look like? And this is the second time now in two segments that I'm having flashbacks to the spring of 2025. Because, again, this announcement, this press conference is coming at 2 p.m.
Right.
Doesn't this feel an awful lot like the Liberation Day announcement in early April of 25?
Lot of hype, much ado about. Well,
I don't know what we're going to. It's just like,
so the Liberation Day announcement back in 2025 was what it was because it was an absolute. It was built up to be something really big, and then it was something really big that had to be pivoted immediately because it was so bad. So I don't know if that's what that's going to look like.
again, you said if you're really serious, then you've got to go after China.
Yes.
Are we going to get the same thing? Because we
China and India.
But this is the thing. We went through the whole China thing for about 90 days in the spring of 2025. And then eventually we got to a place where, again, I don't know, like, I'm not going to take any sides, but like both sides were just like, okay, we're good with this. We're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is too painful for all of us. Let's move on. So my question on this is, like, what are we actually going to get? And I don't know.
How much pain are we willing to tolerate? That's the question.
I don't know.
Are we willing to tolerate a whole bunch of pain in order to deal with this?
And games of chicken are inherently unpredictable. Like, you can't predict who's going to win them or how exactly they're going to play out. So I'm interested to hear what we get, but my goodness, I'm really having spring of 25 flashbacks right now just in terms of news flow. Quick break. When we come back, it's Wall Street Watch.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. A single nursing home stay could cost you more than $14,000 a month. That's why so many families believe they'll have to spend almost everything before a loved one can qualify for Medicaid. But that isn't always the case. Cushing & Dolan has created a new guide called Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. In it, you'll learn how Medicaid eligibility works, get information about last-minute planning options that may still be available, the mistakes that could cost your family, and why acting quickly could give you more options. Don't assume you have to lose everything to pay for long-term care. Get your free copy of our new guide called Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. That's legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
I was 24 when I had a stroke.
I was 35 when I suffered a heart attack.
I was 46.
I was 62.
It's a fact. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in women.
But we can fight against our number one killer.
Talk to your doctor about your risk factors.
Know your family history.
Learn the warning signs and symptoms.
Together,
let's go red for women.
Visit goredforwomen.org to learn more.
Every mile can make a difference for a Massachusetts veteran. The DAV 5K Boston returns to Castle Island on Saturday, November 7th for a family-friendly day of community, remembrance, and support. Whether you run the 5K, join the 1 mile walk, or make a donation, your participation helps further the mission of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Honor those who served. Sign up today at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our guide this month is titled Navigating Retirement Housing Choices. Mike, as you get towards retirement, what are some of the considerations for whether you should stay in the property that you've been in for a while or consider moving to a new one?
To me, for most people, they come down to 2 factors. One would be financial, and 2 would be quality of life. And so, first things first, right? I mean, you're heading to retirement. Did you do enough saving to be able to afford to live in the same place you did with or without that mortgage, with where property taxes and insurance costs have been going. So that's probably number one. But the one that people kind of start to forget about is the quality of life. And so how close am I to family? How close am I to health care? And am I going to be safe in this house 20 years from now from a healthcare perspective?
It seems like for most people, they're going to have different priorities as far as which of those come first. So it very much is not, here's what you do, but more, here are the things you need to consider and then get to your own conclusion.
Yeah, but I think it's important that people think long-term on this, right? You do not want to make this decision twice. And so very often we do see that happen. Hey, I'm moving here because of taxes, and I didn't think about the other qualitative lifestyle pieces about that move.
Folks, our guide is titled Navigating Retirement Housing Choices. There are 2 ways to request it. First, you can call 800-393-4001. Second, you can go to ArmstrongAdvisory.com. That phone number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide at ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets kicking off a busy week in mixed territory with a pullback in tech this morning as Wall Street readies for Nvidia earnings, another inflation reading, and the Jackson Hole Symposium this week. Investors are also awaiting details about U.S. economic sanctions on Iran this afternoon at 2. Right now, the Dow is up 0.3% or 156 points higher. S&P 500 down about 0.25% or 19 points lower. NASDAQ down 0.2% or 174 points lower. Russell 2000 is off about 0.5%. 10-year Treasury yield is down 3 basis points at 4.70%, and oil retreating 2%, trading at $85 a barrel. Several memory storage companies are seeing losses to begin the week. SanDisk, Western Digital, Seagate Technology, and Micron Technology are down anywhere between 7 and 9%. Meanwhile, Alibaba off over 1% after the Chinese technology company announced it was issuing $10.2 billion of new shares to non-U.S. investors, where all of the money it raises will be used to fund its AI projects. And after trade talks between the U.S. and Canada fell apart on Friday, steel manufacturers, including Nucor and Steel Dynamics, are rising about 3% on the day. Canada is set to target the U.S. steel industry in its retaliatory tariffs that will begin on September 8th. Unless they don't. I don't know. I'm Tucker Silva. That is Wall Street Watch.
Piece from CNBC titled Bessent could tap near $1 trillion Treasury General account to fund bond buybacks, sources said. I'm just going to quote a couple things here. Quote, the Treasury could use its nearly $1 trillion general account to help fund its recently announced plans to increase purchases of government bonds, according to 2 senior Treasury officials. Using the TGA would provide the Treasury with considerable firepower to influence long-term bond yields. So here's the deal. If you're not familiar with what the Treasury general account is, it's basically the bank account for the U.S. government. It gets funded through 2 different things. The 2 different things it gets funded through are issuance of U.S. debt and taxes.
Got it.
So you can't print money from it. You can't be like, well, let's use this and then just like replenish it. Like, okay, the way that you replenish it is either by collecting more tax revenue or by borrowing more money. So this kind of gets at like what we talked about last week, which is, okay, ultimately, if you're talking about doing buybacks of this, like at some way, shape, or form, it's going to have to, come in the form of either increased tax revenue or borrowing. But the caveat is that you do have a little bit of wiggle room because you don't need to keep the TGA filled to a certain level necessarily. Like there's a minimum operating level. Whenever we get into like all the debt ceiling crap that we inevitably get to, what we're talking about is, hey, how low can the TGA go before checks start to bounce from the Treasury? But look, do you need to hold $1 trillion in it? No. So could you take $100 billion from the TGA and buy a bunch of, long-term bonds with it? You could. And in the short term, then you're not increasing borrowing. And so in theory, yes, it is, potentially able to drive what you want. But the counter to that is, okay, that just means that you're going to have to borrow more money sooner than you thought, which means you're not really doing anything. You're just kind of kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. Charitably, you're kind of reshuffling those shells with the different stuff on it. Less charitably, you are shuffling the chairs in the deck of the Titanic. Whatever comparison you want to make there, if you think the deficit is as big a problem as some people do. The yield on the 10-year is coming down a little bit today. So, every day that there's an announcement like this, we see some movement in treasuries, but so far it's been move down followed by leg up as investors kind of doubt the willingness and firepower of the Treasury. So we'll see if this time's any different.
Now, yields could be coming down because oil prices are down a couple percentage points today as well. Yep. They could be coming down because, they've just gotten too extended in the last week. Again, you never know why anything's, going in one particular direction on any given day. What I do find interesting is regardless of which way Treasury yields are moving right now, up or down on a particular day, gold's only moving in one direction. And that is up. And gold's had almost a 20% blowout topside now after getting down into the 3,900 range, midsummer. It's at 47.31 and up another $50 today. So I do think it gets back to the idea of, okay, you can do this, but it doesn't change the underlying dynamics, which are, hey, there are two reasons. There's several reasons why yields can rise. It could be that investors are concerned about the level of debt that's outstanding. I generally dismiss that for short-term market moves because when yields come back down, it's not because the amount of debt went back down. Yeah. It could be because the growth prospects for the U.S. are better than they've been previously. I buy this a little bit because of the amount of CapEx going into the AI trade and things like that. There's a bunch of money being spent to build stuff in the U.S. right now, and so I think economic growth at the very least has a higher floor under it than the last couple of years and potentially a higher ceiling. I buy that as a possibility. It could be because investors are concerned about inflation. Yep, I buy that as well. So all these things can factor in, but ultimately what matters here is the Treasury Secretary saying, look, we don't want to have interest rates on the long end be as high as they are. That's the message that you take away. No matter what the proximate cause is, Treasury is saying we want those yields down, and that is directly at odds with what we've heard from the Fed in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah. It's not that the Fed came out and said we want rates higher in the same way that Bessent said we want rates lower, but they did say that they don't need to do anything else because those rates have gone higher. So it stands starkly in contrast to Warsh's own presentation on things, and there's really no more important question to answer this Friday, and I have no idea if he'll be willing to do so.
Well, he doesn't have to.
He doesn't.
There's no press conference on Friday. Friday is Kevin Warsh gets to say whatever he wants.
Right.
And there's no pushback.
And if he completely ignores any of this, then I think that's more telling than even if he gives a bit of a discombobulated message on all of these actions.
I mean, here are some Warsh quotes from literally 4 weeks ago. Rates are higher today than they were 42 days ago. Markets have made decisions because we have stepped back in part from trying to influence those market judgments. It's Warsh saying, the market's doing its own work. We don't have to. And then Bessent comes in 3 weeks later and is like, nope, we have to. I got to pay the bills. Now, again, part of this is a difference in role. Kevin Warsh's job is not to pay the bills. Kevin Warsh's job is to keep a lid on inflation, promote price stability, and maintain a strong job market, promote full employment. Full stop. Those are the two mandates of the Fed. You can argue whether those mandates are good or bad, but that is what his dual mandate is. Scott Bessent's job is to pay the bills. And those things can come into conflict. Yep. We've seen this before historically. Look at the post-World War II period that we saw from 45 to 51. And by the time the post-World War II period was over, inflation was on an annualized basis, like up to 21% in mid 1951, before they were finally like, okay, we got to stop like capping interest rates because we've dug out from the debt that we ran up in World War II, and now we gotta stop inflating our way out of it.
So I have to keep going back to why this is so important. Yes, they are directly contradicting each other. That can happen all the time in politics, in government. It's not often. It's not often not the case that different elected officials or appointed officials don't get along terribly well with each other.
I'm not suggesting they're not getting along.
I have no idea.
No,
right? Like we don't know. But there's a couple ways to read this. Either Bessent has taken actions that are going to pretty much paint Warsh and the Fed into a corner, or they are working together on something, and it's really hard to know which, but in either case, it spells dramatically different outcomes, one of which could be substantially higher inflation for a longer period of time. Another could be a Federal Reserve that needs to completely swing in a different direction on its actions in order to get inflation under control, and I don't really have a strong feeling as to which one it's going to be.
No, this is the most exciting, most dramatic season of the Fed ever.
Yeah.
And I wish, how they do like Hard Knocks for football preseason for the NFL?
Yeah.
I wish they did like, again, not even I know we talked about like almost a scripted reality show, but like I wish they just had like someone doing a documentary at the Fed right now.
Yeah, it would get like 17 subscribers on Bloomberg.
You could, but like, I wish that like last Wednesday we had someone in Jay Powell's house and he wakes up and sees the headline and is just like, whatever he says,
You
and
think
like,
he's got a tagline?
Powell?
Is there a laugh track? Here we go again.
It's time for Powell power or something. Like, I don't know, or like, Warsh comes in as like, worst decision ever.
Yeah.
Like something like, they could all have like their little things.
Play. Yeah.
I don't know why they're all, who's the guy from the Fantastic Four that turns into the Rock?
Yeah.
Is it the Thing?
I don't know. Hasn't been my most commonly watched Marvel.
I'm pretty sure it's the Thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the Thing.
The Thing. Yeah. I don't know why they all have to be like, the Thing going like, it's clobbering time. But, it would be nice if like our Fed chair did that.
No, that would be.
No, that wouldn't be great.
Not a good look.
It's fine. That's why you don't put a rock in charge of the Federal Reserve. Let's take a quick break, and when we return, let's talk a little bit just about borrowing costs and their impact on households and businesses. Again, we've been talking a lot about the bond market more generally. Let's talk about that now.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we're covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. A nursing home stay can cost more than $14,000 a month. Before you assume you have to spend everything to qualify for Medicaid, get the facts. Call 866-848-5699 for your free copy of Cushing & Dolan's new guide, Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Who wants to play golf to support the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts? I know you do.
Let's do it for the DAV.
Mark your calendars. Monday, August 31st, Granite Links, Quincy, Massachusetts. A full day of golf and entertainment, and all to raise money for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Let's go. DAVMA.org/event.
Let's do it for
DAVMA.org/event.
The worst time to make a housing decision is when you don't have a choice. This is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Too often, people don't think about their next home until a health issue or the upkeep of a house makes the decision for them. If you start planning now, you can take your time, explore your options, and make decisions that fit your retirement goals instead of reacting to a crisis. In our new guide called Navigating Retirement Housing Choices, you'll learn about downsizing, 55-plus communities, continuing care retirement communities, assisted living, and the important questions to to ask before making one of retirement's biggest decisions. Don't wait until circumstances dictate what you need to do. Get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
In a heartbeat, you could be the difference.
Mark collapsed from cardiac arrest.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive.
It took 30 minutes of chest compressions to finally feel a pulse.
Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. But together, we can change that. Extraordinary things happen when people take action. A small step, a simple skill, a life-saving moment. HeartWalk brings communities together to create health and hope for every heartbeat. Every walker who joins HeartWalk, every dollar donated, means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Join HeartWalk today. Find your local HeartWalk at heartwalk.org.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Piece here in the New York Times is titled, "The Economy Got Used to Low Borrowing Costs. Their Exit Could Pose Risks." I'm actually, we've already gone through the transition from, extremely low borrowing costs to, kind of more historically normal ones.
When is this going to happen? Because mortgage rates have been over 6% for 4 years now.
Yes. So I think the greatest risks were when the rate of change was high back in 2022, and that's where we, almost slipped into recession at the end of the year, and very certainly in the first half to two-thirds of the year, we're in a very stagflationary environment. So I think the place that I land on this is the reason why rates were so low from 2008 through 2021. The economy sucked for most of that time. And so it was a function of, hey, there's not really any meaningful inflation, and the economy's bad. In particular, unemployment was really high until about 2015. And yeah, so borrowing rates were very cheap. I don't think we should wish to get back to those rates, because ultimately it means that something went really wrong in the economy and nothing we could do would stimulate it to a better place than it was.
Yeah, I think there's perhaps more to why, inflation was so low during that period of time. Yes, high unemployment is a pretty good guarantor of lower inflation. Remember, too, we were still very much open to importing stuff from all over the globe. You saw substantial either deflation or arguably deflation in some areas of consumer products, such as all sorts of technology, electronics. appliances, all sorts of stuff there. It was pretty deflationary. And you could argue that we've reversed some of that globalization piece as well. And so I think there's multiple things that now make 2026 and beyond look like it could be an environment for higher interest rates for longer, paired with higher inflation for longer. But I don't see, if we sink into recession in 2027, for example, I'd have a tough time blaming it on high interest rates.
Yeah, if interest rates aren't moving from where they've been, which we've been stuck in a pretty ultimately narrow range over the last several years.
Yeah, 30-year mortgage rates gone from 6 to 7% for 4 years.
It's just been ping-ponging back and forth, basically. Is that any different from when it used to go from 30-year mortgage from 3.5 to 4.5? No, just go back. We didn't sit there when it was in that range and be like, oh, now it's 4.5, the world's ending. No, it's range bound.
Yeah.
Well, one day you're living in your own home, the next you can't return home after rehab. Now you're faced with a nursing home bill of over more than $14,000 a month and wondering how you're going to pay for it. These situations can occur without warning, but Cushing & Dolan can help. Before you make any major financial decisions, get the facts. Cushing & Dolan's new guide, Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility, explains common misconceptions about Medicaid, what assets may or may not be at risk, and why the first answer you receive isn't always your only option. Call right now at 866-848-5699 to get your free copy of Cushing & Dolan's guide, Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. The number, once again, 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
So this Friday, we do have the Jackson Hole Symposium for the Federal Reserve. We've yet to be able to obtain a copy of the menu, not that we've tried very hard. But the policy brief will be out at 8 p.m. on Thursday, actually, so markets will get a preview of it heading into the Friday session. And I'm curious, exactly what we hear from Warsh as he tries to fine-tune his message into something that I think still maintains the core tenets of what he believes in, but maybe is just packaged in a more palatable way for the market. Because I think if you're Warsh, the way that you're looking at it, I made this comparison last week. Hey, is the problem the pizza, meaning what you're actually saying, or is it the box, just the packaging and how it's wrapped up? And I think for Warsh, at least at this point, if I were Warsh, again, we all have, a little bit of ego and we all have, kind of a self-preservation instinct. That's probably pointing him towards saying, I believe in my message, I just phrased it wrong and I need to hone it in order to package it better.
Claire Jones, she is the one who has previously kind of reported from the Fed, maybe, replacing Tim Rose in terms of influence and ability to report what the Fed's thinking. First sentence, Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh will seek to soothe investors' nerves in a crunch week as mounting signs of economic strain threaten to cast a shadow over the annual Jackson Hole Symposium. Yeah, that seems a little bit different in terms of the messaging we've got from the last two meetings. I don't know if it'll end up being true, but that would seemingly be the message that Warsh is trying to get out here, is that he will be delivering a message that attempts to soothe investors' nerves. To me, that would mean addressing the seeming conundrum between him and Bessent, or conflict.
He's not going to mention it.
I don't think he will.
I don't think he'll mention it.
Yeah, which isn't going to soothe any investors' nerves in that case.
Which means that, given that, we are on to the next meeting, the September meeting, which is in 23 days on September 16th. Quick break here. Hour 2 coming up in just a bit.
Retirement isn't just one stage of life. It changes over time, and your home should change with it. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. You may have heard of the go-go years when you're traveling and enjoying the freedom you've worked so hard to earn. Then come the slow-go years when convenience starts to matter more, and eventually the no-go years when safety and support take center stage. Our new guide, Navigating Retirement Housing Choices, shows you how different housing options can fit each stage of retirement. From staying in your home to downsizing to exploring elder life communities, you'll learn what questions to ask before you're forced to make a decision. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or request the guide at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. A single nursing home stay could cost you more than $14,000 a month. That's why so many families believe they'll have to spend almost everything before a loved one can qualify for Medicaid. But that isn't always the case. Cushing & Dolan has created a new guide called Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. In it, you'll learn how Medicaid eligibility works, get information about last-minute planning options that may still be available, the mistakes that could cost your family, and why acting quickly could give you more options. Don't assume you have to lose everything to pay for long-term care. Get your free copy of our new guide called Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
In a heartbeat, you could be the difference.
Mark collapsed from cardiac arrest.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive.
It took 30 minutes of chest compressions to finally feel a pulse.
Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. But together, we can change that. Extraordinary things happen when people take action. A small step, a simple skill, a life-saving moment. HeartWalk brings communities together to create health and hope for every heartbeat. Every walker who joins HeartWalk, every dollar donated, means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Join HeartWalk today. Find your local HeartWalk at heartwalk.org.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit GoRedForWomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Every mile can make a difference for a Massachusetts veteran. The DAV 5K Boston returns to Castle Island on Saturday, November 7th for a family-friendly day of community, remembrance, and support. Whether you run the 5K, join the 1 mile walk, or make a donation, Your participation helps further the mission of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Honor those who served. Sign up today at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about techniques that can help protect your assets from long-term care expenses last minute. Todd, is the healthy spouse allowed to keep anything when the sick spouse enters a nursing home? And what happens if the sick spouse has the majority of the income?
Great question, because when you're talking about applying for Medicaid last minute, or when someone enters a nursing home and you want to do this last minute, they're going to look at both assets and income, right? So from an asset standpoint, as a married couple, they do allow you to keep approximately $148,000. That piece is indexed for inflation or changes every year. The sick spouse is allowed to keep $2,000. So you're around $150,000 of total assets that you can keep. By the way, if you're single, you only get to keep $2,000 in assets. From an income perspective, the good news is that the healthy spouse can keep all of the healthy spouse's income, Social Security, pension, you name it. And so it does not matter how much income the healthy spouse has, but they are entitled to at least a minimum monthly maintenance needs allowance, but no maximum.
Todd Lutzke and the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that details last-minute Medicaid eligibility. You can request this brand new guide by calling 866-848-5699. That number again is 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, Tucker with you here as we kick off. Pretty interesting week in markets. Not too much in the way of earnings. We've got Nvidia coming up on Wednesday, which we're going to discuss because, look, there might not be much in terms of volume, but in terms of importance, hard to find a more important company in the world than Nvidia today.
True.
It's almost $5 trillion in market cap, and so that's on Wednesday that we have their earnings. Also this week, in terms of economic data, We get some home price data coming out on Tuesday, the Case-Shiller Home Price Index and the FHFA Home Price Index. Wednesday, we get PCE Price Index data. Thursday, we're going to be getting jobless claims. And Friday, we got Kevin Warsh talking in Jackson Hole. So, nice little week. It's, again, it's not really a ton of volume, but a couple really important pieces of data that I'm not expecting any huge surprises, but that's why they call them surprises, Michael, is because you're not expecting them.
Yeah, like the data points I don't think are, like you said, Nvidia, hard to argue that any other company's earnings matter more than them. So big data point. Other than that, I think we're going to see some, we know we're getting a press conference from Bessent this afternoon on, quote, economic D-Day. Are we really willing to bring ourselves to that brink again? We have got the Jackson Hole piece. There's all this conflict between what the Fed is trying to accomplish versus what Treasury is trying to accomplish. So I think that's where you're going to find the interesting news because, quite honestly, as important as Nvidia's earnings are, pretty tough for them to surprise anybody at this stage given who their customers are, what we know they're spending, and what Nvidia's been doing recently. So let's dive in there on Wednesday afternoon's earnings call for, depending on the day, the first or second largest company in the world.
Yeah. Just before we do that, S&P's down about 26 points right now. The Dow's up 91. NASDAQ Composite down 187. So mixed markets, slight downside bias today. 10-year Treasury, though, catching a bit of a bid, down 3.8 basis points, back to 4.7%. Dollar's up despite that, up 0.17%. But even with the dollar up, gold's still finding a bid today, up $49.80 an ounce to $47.30. And so you've got some continued movement there. Crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, down $2.11 a barrel to $84.95. AAA national average for gas prices, looks like we are up 3. Hang on.
You got it.
They go out an extra decimal point now, which is just confusing. We are up
3 1,000ths?
5 1,000ths of a percent. I don't know. Like, gas prices are flat today.
Got it.
Diesel prices, though, up another cent overnight to $5.61. We're now just 20 cents away on diesel from an all-time high.
Good part of the reason why NASDAQ's down 0.75%, by the way. Nvidia stock today off $5.55 or 2.5%.
Wouldn't be surprised if we just get some choppy trading before Jackson Hole. It kind of feels like that's what we're just set up for. Not necessarily bad, but just up and down, chop everyone up and spit them back out. So we've got Nvidia reporting on Wednesday. Analysts are projecting $92 billion of sales in the second quarter, up from a forecast of $78 billion just at the start of the year. So, again, like you're talking about just monster growth there. And, look, I think sometimes we lose sight of kind of the larger picture in that, look, everyone's guilty of this. We are too. We talk an awful lot just about, like, what's going on in this quarter and, what happened last week. Here's something that I just want to go back to just for context on Nvidia. If you go back to Q4 of 22, remember,
before OpenAI got announced.
End of 22, I think it was December, is when ChatGPT hit the mainstream. Nvidia had just completed a year in which it did $26 billion in revenue for the year. The last 12 months, they've done $253 billion. They have 10x their revenue in 4 years.
Yeah. So you can talk about all the baloney numbers when it comes to AI and how much revenue those companies are going to need to generate and whether or not it'll truly be that impactful. But it's pretty easy to measure how impactful it's been to NVIDIA's business.
Absolutely. And by the way, again, you just kind of look at it and you're like, okay, so they've done $253 billion in revenue the last 12. If you extrapolate out some projections, they could very easily get to like $400-500 billion in revenue next year, which is just nuts for a chip maker.
Yep.
I mean, we've never seen anything like this. Just as an example, like during the tech bubble, Intel was the big chip maker then. And Intel's revenue got to like $30 billion for the year. I know you can be like, well, what about an inflation? Okay, great, it was $60 billion.
Yep.
we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I wonder if there is any hardware maker at that point in time that saw their revenue grow 10x. I don't have an answer.
Let's see. So Intel, the closest that I can find is like we're talking over a 4-year period.
Yeah.
The closest I can find is maybe like a 2 or 3x. I'm going to go take a look at Cisco. And Cisco in 96 was at 314.99. Cisco went 4x from 3 billion to 12, but again, the scale's just dramatically different still.
Yes.
So like you've got some examples, and again, that's why if you were looking at Cisco's market cap, okay, Cisco, like, I get it. It went from in 96 being a $20 billion company to being a $500 billion company because people said, well, if they continue to quadruple their revenue like every 4 years, sure, like and then they didn't, and so they went back to being an $80 billion company and basically stayed there for about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying NVIDIA's Cisco. I'm not saying NVIDIA's Intel. What I am saying is just what we've seen. I think we got to just sometimes like acknowledge and just show a little bit of appreciation. Like, we never seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
And it could end great for NVIDIA, could end badly. Like, I don't know where we're going to be 5 years from now. But quarter to quarter is what drives markets, and so you've got this earnings report that is, coming up. And the reason that I don't think you're going to see any surprises to the downside for NVIDIA is because everyone's telling you they can't get enough of these chips right now and can't install them quickly enough. And so you would hear it from the hyperscalers before NVIDIA reports, especially because they all reported earnings a month ago.
Right. Now, when you say downside, what you're talking about is anticipated revenue, not necessarily how investors react to that anticipated revenue.
Correct.
And that's an important.
Yes.
That's an important distinction here is, expectations from analysts are for $92 billion worth of revenue in the second quarter. It was a lot lower than that at the start of this year. Will it be enough for investors to be optimistic now about NVIDIA amongst all of the other projects that they are trying to endeavor in? One is this new funding mechanism for their customers. That's certainly a way to keep the gravy train going, but effectively you're saying we are going to use our creditworthiness as a massive... the most massive company in the world to backstop the loans that you're going to make to buy our products. Increasingly, the phenomenon that we have focused on is the
circularity,
the tentacles that you are seeing, just
tentacality.
The tentacality of this market. But these companies are,
I like that,
inexorably tying their future success or failure to each other in this market, right? Effectively, NVIDIA is going out there and, as an example, saying, we will backstop the loans that OpenAI is taking out in order to buy our product. Okay. If they are hugely successful and you don't need to backstop those loans, then you're going to have a customer that's going to keep on ordering your stuff at record high prices. If they fail in some meaningful way, if they end up not being the global leader in AI and can't generate those sales to back the loans that they are taking, then not only do you potentially sink that company, you potentially have some damage done to the giant supplier and, frankly, household name for AI for the last 4 years.
Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about the potential, and I say potential, but the likely looming expansion of trading hours and what it means for markets going forward.
Missed a show? You can find them on our YouTube page. The show streams live every day, but every hour is archived, including all of our most newsworthy interviews. Go to YouTube and search for the Financial Exchange Radio Show.
You've been saying one more year for the past 5 years, and now you're still sitting in the same traffic, taking the same exits, wondering when work finally becomes optional. At the Armstrong Advisory Group, we help people create personalized retirement plans so they can better understand their income, investments, taxes, and Social Security strategy. Don't say one more year again without learning about these issues so you can make the most educated decision for yourself and your family. Let us review your portfolio and offer suggestions that may provide a clearer timeline for your retirement. Schedule your no-obligation meeting today by visiting us at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com. The Armstrong Advisory Group. We answer only to you.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. One day, you're living in your own home. The next, you can't return home after rehab. Now, you're faced with a nursing home bill of more than $14,000 a month and wondering how you're going to pay for it. These situations can occur without warning, but Cushing & Dolan can help. Before you make any major decisions, get the facts. Cushing & Dolan's new guide, Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility, explains common misconceptions about Medicaid, what assets may or may not be at risk, and why the first answer you receive isn't always your only option. Call right now, 866-848-5699, and get your free copy of Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. That's legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative James McGovern are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
In a heartbeat, you could be the difference.
Mark collapsed from cardiac arrest.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive.
It took 30 minutes of chest compressions to finally feel a pulse.
Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. But together, we can change that. Extraordinary things happen when people take action. A small step, a simple skill, a life-saving moment. HeartWalk brings communities together to create health and hope for every heartbeat. Every walker who joins HeartWalk, every dollar donated, means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Join HeartWalk today. Find your local HeartWalk at heartwalk.org.
The Financial Exchange is now available every day from 11 to noon on Sirius XM's Business Radio Channel 132. Stay informed about the latest from Wall Street, fiscal policy, and breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is live on Sirius XM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts, and this year's 5K is officially sold out. The race will take place on Saturday, November 7th at Fort Independence on Castle Island, and we hope you can take this opportunity to consider making a donation. Your gifts help provide vital services like free transportation to medical appointments and safe housing for single veterans and their families. Donate today at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
So we got a piece here in Barron's. It's titled "The Market That Never Sleeps is Getting Closer to Reality." And this comes as the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange plan to expand to 23-hour-a-day, 5-day-a-week trading starting on December 6th. That is when basically the back-end processing facilities they expect will be ready to handle this. And the SEC hasn't commented on the current approval status because it still is, work in progress. But by and large, it seems like this is coming. I think it very much is an open question as to, who wants this.
So there's been a few innovations, not even innovations, but improvements in capital markets over the last decade or 2 decades that I've found really useful. It used to be when you bought or sold a stock, you had 3 days to settle the trade. Meaning if you needed money on a Friday, you needed to get your butt in order by Tuesday in order to make sure you had the trades in place in order to have the cash in your account and deal with that delay. Today it's 1 day.
And there's, by the way, there's a good reason why it's not 0 days. Yes. Is because then you run into all kinds of problems with potentially netting things out. And if something goes wrong in a trade, being able to resolve it cleanly. And I know people are like, well, why can't I just have it instantly? And it's like, okay, understand how big the global financial system is and all the different moving pieces. And maybe having 1 day to make sure nothing's gone wrong isn't a bad thing.
Prior to 2011, when I made trades in my investment account, I was required to track on my own what I paid for those different securities and then report them to the IRS.
Yeah.
Since 2011, every custodian in the U.S. has been required to track that on your behalf. And conveniently or inconveniently to you, depending on your outlook, report that directly to the IRS on your behalf.
Yeah.
Again, maybe you think that's overreach, but really convenient for the vast majority of investors compared to the way it was done prior to. So all of those, I look at real improvements. I have struggled in my mind to come up for any reason that this helps anybody.
I'll tell you why. It's one paragraph right here. Actually, it's one sentence that they made into a paragraph because this is all just paragraphs of sentences. I don't know why. The shift to 23-hour trading 5 days a week could be good for business for the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange.
So that's who's winning.
Got it.
So it doesn't help you, me, or anybody else.
The exchanges will make more money being able to get that big-ass spread 23 hours a day.
Yeah.
Quote, from a business opportunity, absolutely we're geared towards the international investing crowd, said John Herrick, Chief Product Officer at New York Stock Exchange. Commercially, that's a very big driver here. So it's basically the exchanges want to make more money.
Yep.
I don't expect most individual investors are going to stay up for the night session because you got to sleep sometime. It's also not going to be, as a result of that, as heavily traded as the day session. And so that can result in liquidity issues and wider spreads. What I mean by that, let's say that you have security X that is, trading at $1 per share. It doesn't actually have a value of $1 if you go to any of the market makers that actually provide liquidity to the market. It might be in a highly liquid market. Okay, they're willing to buy it from you for 99 cents and they'll sell it back to someone else for $1.01, just as an example. In reality, oftentimes it's fractions of a penny, but I'm just making an example here. So in that case, there's a 2-cent bid-ask spread. But let's say that the overnight session is more thinly traded and there aren't as many participants. And so because market makers don't want to get stuck holding the security at a loss, remember, the market can move unexpectedly at times. They might say, you know what? I got to have a wider spread during the night session because I might lose money on this trade if I can't unload it quickly enough. And so the market maker might say, normally, I'll do, again, I'll buy it from you for 99, sell it to someone else for 101. Hey, I'm only going to pay you 97 cents now for that, and I'll sell it to someone else for 103. Wider spreads means more revenue for the exchange and less money in market participants' pockets. That's how it works.
Yep.
And if you've ever traded thinly traded securities, you know this, by the way. You've seen this. you've seen stuff where it's like, oh, like the bid ask on that is not a cent. It's like 10 cents because no one's trading this. Or, hey, the bid ask looks like it's there, but I'm trading this and I can't get it to fill because it's not real liquidity even. Like, this stuff happens. So I don't know that this is really good for... I'll tell you, it's not good for investors. It might be good for traders who maybe are able to take advantage of this if they have, sophisticated ways to approach it. For long-term investors,
doesn't help you.
It doesn't help you. It doesn't hurt you. It's just like it doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, I guess it can hurt you if you're tempted to trade in the middle of the night and don't know what you're doing.
Every time I get the temptation to trade in the middle of the night, I realize it's just a bad dream.
Yeah.
Friends don't let friends trade in the middle of the night.
Nothing good happens after midnight.
No, what I can tell you, like,
my parents used to constantly shift that number, by the way. Started at 10 p.m. and then it was midnight. By the time I was in my 20s, I think it was 2 a.m. But, nothing good ever happens after midnight.
I have a buddy of mine who used to play online poker.
Uh-huh.
And his whole thing was he would play the 2 a.m. shift online.
Because it was just a bunch of drunk people?
It was everyone. It wasn't even drunk U.S. people. It was everyone coming home from the casinos overseas. Because, again, you couldn't play online poker for money, legally or anything.
Yeah.
But it was all these people who were, coming home drunk from bars overseas. And he was just clean. He'd be like, I'd wake up at midnight, and I'd, have breakfast and blah, blah, blah. And then I would make crazy money because it was all these drunk people coming home and trying to play poker, and they were terrible at it. And I kind of look at it the same way with, the 2 a.m. trading session is probably going to be a bunch of drunk people thinking they're going to make money, and then they're going to wake up in the morning and be like,
oh,
what happened?
God, what did I do?
I actually did that? So,
breathalyzer on your
You really,
iPhone.
Honestly,
there's a number of reasons people should have breathalyzers on their iPhones, actually.
It's not even like the drinking. We know that when you look at sleep deprivation, it has the same effect on cognition as drinking. You shouldn't trade in the middle of the night. Quick break. We got the other stuff next.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The biggest retirement decision you make may have nothing to do with your investments. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. You've worked hard preparing your finances for retirement, so take the time to think about whether your home will still fit the life you want to live. The house that's perfect today could become more work than it's worth a few years from now. Stairs, maintenance, a big yard, or even being too far from the people and places that matter. Our new guide, Navigating Retirement Housing Choices, walks through the different stages of retirement, the housing options available, and the questions you should be asking now before a decision becomes urgent. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide by visiting ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. One day, you're living in your own home. The next, you can't return home after rehab. Now, you're faced with a nursing home bill of more than $14,000 a month and wondering how you're going to pay for it. These situations can occur without warning, but Cushing & Dolan can help. Before you make any major decisions, get the facts. Cushing & Dolan's new guide, Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility, explains common misconceptions about Medicaid, what assets may or may not be at risk, and why the first answer you receive isn't always your only option. Call right now, 866-848-5699, and get your free copy of Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide online at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive. Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. Every walker who joins HeartWalk means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Find your local HeartWalk at heartwalk.org.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group. We have a guide available this month titled Navigating Retirement Housing Choices. Mike, when we look at the considerations for people in their housing and retirement, one that comes up are these continuing care retirement communities, CCRCs, or age-in-place communities as they're known. How does someone make a decision about looking at one of those?
Well, I think obviously you have to sort out your priorities, but the first thing is to think long-term about this. And what people sometimes overlook with these places is that term continuing care means that they adapt to your needs over time, but they do not just allow anyone in. In a lot of cases, they will have cognitive and physical tests that you need to pass in order to be accepted into these communities that then will provide all sorts of care later in life. And so I think early on is always better if you're considering that sort of thing.
The financial aspect of these also has a number of considerations as well in terms of what's actually affordable given your particular budget and liquidity.
Do I need a buy-in? Am I going to rent a place? What are my options for later in life? And then all sorts of tax considerations. Hey, I really want an income tax-free state. Well, is that worth it if I'm going to be paying more in property taxes given the composition of my assets and income? All of these really important considerations.
The guide this month is titled Navigating Retirement Housing Choices, and you've got a couple different ways to request it. First, you can call 800-393-4001. The second choice, you can go to armstrongadvisory.com and request it there. Again, that website is armstrongadvisory.com, or you can get it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets mixed to begin the week with a modest pullback in tech as Wall Street prepares for Nvidia earnings. Another inflation reading in the Jackson Hole Symposium later this week. Investors also awaiting details about U.S. economic sanctions on Iran this afternoon at 2. Right now, the Dow is up 0.3% or 162 points higher. S&P 500 down about 0.25% or 17 points lower. NASDAQ down about 0.5%, 122 points lower. Russell 2000 is down 0.6%. 10-year Treasury yield down 4 basis points at 4.69%, and oil down 2%, trading at $85 a barrel. Several memory storage companies seeing losses to begin the week. SanDisk, Western Digital, Seagate Technology, and Micron Technology are down anywhere between 6 and 8%. Meanwhile, Alibaba now dipping slightly after the Chinese technology company announced it was issuing $10.2 billion of new shares to non-U.S. investors, where all of the money it raises will be used to fund its AI projects. And after trade talks between the USA and Canada fell apart on Friday, steel manufacturers, including Nucor and Steel Dynamics, are up about 2% on the day. Canada is set to target the U.S. steel industry in its retaliatory tariffs that will begin on September 8th. I'm Tucker Silva. That is Wall Street Watch.
Piece of the New York Times for Gen Z: building wealth is in the stock market, not the housing market. That's the title. What's the deal, Mike?
I think it's baloney.
Enlighten me.
So they're laying out this piece here that there's this generational shift ongoing for logical reasons. It's tougher for Gen Zers to get into the housing market than it has been for other generations based on price of homes and interest rates, right? Heck of a lot tougher if you're in that group than if you were a millennial with the same amount saved to buy a home. You could argue that wages are up in accordance with that, but realistically, it's tougher. There are a lot fewer homes for sale today than there were a few years ago, and there's more people on this earth. So, got the premise, makes plenty of sense.
Sure.
The argument would be that this is going to turn into some long-term phenomenon, which I doubt. Gen Z is pretty young. What's the oldest Gen Zer? Do either of you know off the top of your head? Late 20s?
Gen Z.
29.
Okay.
The oldest, 97. Carry the
29.
What he said.
So I have a really tough time buying into the idea that a generation whose oldest demo is 29 years old is substantially different from the previous one. If they do go about this differently than every previous generation, I'm also not sure it will equate to anything terribly bad for them. So I think there are a ton of benefits to homeownership. And frankly, our capital system and our tax system is set up in a way that benefits homeownership. So you think through a few things here. One, the amount of leverage you can put onto a primary residence, your single family home, is quite a bit more than just about any product out there. The existence of a 30-year mortgage really wouldn't exist unless the government forced the banks to make 30-year mortgages. And then finally, there's this nice capital gains tax exclusion you get when you sell a home that doesn't exist on any other asset that I'm familiar with. So if you can afford to buy a home, it's a pretty great thing to do. But plenty of studies have shown that, hey, so long as you're actually a disciplined renter who does not fall for the lifestyle creep that typically comes with folks as they earn more income over time, which is a very difficult one to combat. But if you, for instance, at 27 years old, have found yourself in an apartment that you're renting for $2,500 a month, and you just see that increase with inflation and then save the rest of your growth and earnings in investments, you're probably going to end up in a pretty similar place, if not better off, than by buying a home. The problem comes in the difficulty in actually doing that and maintaining that discipline to actually save the money, rather than taking those excess dollars that you earn and putting them towards lifestyle creep.
I'll go further. Do you know, so the oldest Gen Zer is now 29.
Yep.
Let's assume, and again, let's assume that they were able to, either they went to college or didn't, but let's assume they were able to start saving money into the stock market at 22.
Okay.
So for the last 7 years.
Yep.
Do you know what the return is over the last 7 years, according to the S&P 500 total return, is over that 7-year period on an annual basis?
13%?
16.7. Wow. This is according to data from Don't Quit Your Day Job.
Oh, I keep forgetting how long ago 7 years was. That was like 2019.
Yeah. So it's been like a really good period.
Yeah.
So my first point is that the earnings, if you've just put money into the stock market, not even like crazy weird stocks, but just the stock market as a whole, you've made almost 17% a year on average for the last 7 years.
Yep.
Do you know what the best return is that we've ever seen for a 7-year period?
22?
25. Okay. And we got to that on two different times. The first was during the Roaring 20s before the Great Depression.
Okay.
The second was the post-World War II period, like 45 through 52.
Wow, we didn't even get there in the 90s?
No. The 90s, we got to around 20%.
Okay.
Okay. But good segue. The only times historically that we have seen a better 7-year return than right now, just before the Great Depression, post-World War II, and the 1990s.
How did stocks do after those?
Horribly. Okay. And again, by horribly, I don't mean that like you lost all of your money necessarily, because you didn't. But like you look at 7-year returns through the 1930s, and they were basically negative for the whole time. If you take a look at the post-tech bubble period, 7-year returns basically fluctuated between like down 4% and up like 1 or 2% a year. So the point that I'll make, the post-World War II period is the only outlier, and even then, by the 1960s, you did have like some returns that were like low to mid single digits, but that's the only one where you didn't just see things fall apart. And even there, the story was, okay, you've got half the workforce that is now coming, half the population that's now coming into the workforce that previously wasn't working. You've got a huge expansion of the economy as a result of that.
So what you're saying is that the Gen Z average experience in investing in the stock market and building wealth might not be their long-term experience.
Yes. I'm saying this is equivalent to basically, I don't want to say, it's not like going into a casino because I don't think long-term investing is gambling, but this is basically like having everything work out perfectly with one decision and being like, I'm going to do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Without understanding that it's just not always like this.
Folks, the decision on where to park money for short, intermediate, and long-term financial decisions that you need to make is incredibly complex, and we get it all the time, right? I was having a conversation just the other day with somebody who was talking about money that they are investing for their parents, and hey, we might need to start accessing it in 18 months. That becomes really, really complicated once you start to understand that over 12-month time periods, stocks move down about 1 in 4 times. It is really complicated to assess, and the horizon for your investments is crucial when making investment decisions. If you are on the cusp of buying a home, if you're thinking about moving, relocating your family, and upgrading your home, or doing projects inside your home, you're likely saving with those goals in mind, and how to save those funds in the most efficient way possible is crucial for your financial scenario. If you have questions along those lines, want a little bit of that financial guidance, give the folks at Armstrong a call. We work with our clients every day on these questions of saving for the future. The number's 800-393-4001. We offer free consultations across New England. You can go to armstrongadvisory.com or call us at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Mike, do you like mold?
Some. Like a good blue cheese.
Right?
Yeah.
I always do wonder, how do you know when blue cheese goes bad? I always look, when it gets hair is the point where I'm like,
got it.
Too blue.
Got
you
it.
know? But what we're talking about here, big nationwide home builders, the D.R. Hortons, the Lennars of the world, they are starting to build up financial reserves for legal claims because we're seeing an uptick in mold-related lawsuits. And the lawsuits are exactly what you would expect. Okay, like so-and-so built my house and they did it poorly, and so we've got mold that we're linking to the construction effort, and it's affecting our health, and so we want, money for it. I don't know whether this is something that is legitimate, not legitimate. I don't know whether rates of mold are higher on new construction than construction from 10 years ago or 40 years ago or 100 years ago. But clearly we are seeing an uptick in lawsuits on this, and builders are socking more money away to deal with it.
Yeah, the argument is that, or one of the arguments from the Journal here is that modern energy efficiency codes have really just lowered the margin of error for builders when it comes to dealing with mold and moisture management. It has become more difficult, and so one improperly installed window or this, that, or the other can really screw you up. And I could see how changing building codes over time could leave some builders unprepared to deal with those and unaware of the potential risks. And for families, mold can be just absolutely devastating in terms of, because the remediation process in a lot of cases effectively tear out everything and throw it out.
Yeah.
So, if this is a real issue, which is, again, we know that there's an increase in these lawsuits. We know that the builders are setting aside more money for them. Is there an actual trend towards higher mold in homes, or are we better at detecting it, or is there something else going on? I think is an open question.
You know what people don't realize about just fungi in general? Mold's a type of it.
Yeah.
Mushrooms being another one. Do you know what the third major type of fungus is?
No, will you tell me?
Yeast. So if you say, hey, like, why don't we just get rid of all fungi? Maybe you're not a mushroom person.
Yeah, big problem.
How do you feel about bread?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I happen to love it myself. But there are too many foods that I don't really enjoy. So it's not a high bar. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's do some stack roulette.
Get real-time financial insight as news breaks. The Financial Exchange is live on X. Watch the show and follow us for the most up-to-date business news you need to know. This is the Financial Exchange. One day, you're living in your own home. The next, you can't return home after rehab. Now, you're faced with a nursing home bill of more than $14,000 a month and wondering how you're going to pay for it. These situations can occur without warning, but Cushing & Dolan can help. Before you make any major decisions, get the facts. Cushing & Dolan's new guide, Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility, explains common misconceptions about Medicaid, what assets may or may not be at risk, and why the first answer you receive isn't always your only option. Call right now, 866-848-5699, and get your free copy of Last Minute Medicaid Eligibility. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. That's legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
The worst time to make a housing decision is when you don't have a choice. This is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Too often, people don't think about their next home until a health issue or the upkeep of a house makes the decision for them. If you start planning now, you can take your time, explore your options, and make decisions that fit your retirement goals instead of reacting to a crisis. In our new guide called Navigating Retirement Housing Choices, you'll learn about downsizing, 55-plus communities, continuing care retirement communities, assisted living, and the important questions to ask before making one of retirement's biggest decisions. Don't wait until circumstances dictate what you need to do. Get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women.
Taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
Stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Stephen Lynch are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Stay informed and prepared for market changes and breaking business news. The Financial Exchange is live every day on YouTube. Tune in, subscribe, and keep up to date on all of our show's content on a daily basis. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Subscribe now to our YouTube page where you'll find interviews, highlights, and full shows of the Financial Exchange. You'll get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Just search the Financial Exchange on YouTube and be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Mike, what do you got for Stack Roulettes?
I've got the robot games in China, and the story itself doesn't really do justice to it, so if you're interested in following along, just go to YouTube and take a look. But Chinese humanoid robots have set records, including beating Usain Bolt's 100-meter sprint at the World Humanoid Robot Games. They also beat the record for the standing high jump, crushing the previous. And I gotta tell you, like, for me personally, these videos are just pretty disturbing, like just terrifying in a science fiction type way. It's silly. They also have a video of them playing soccer. They're terrible. After the 100-meter sprint, they're all crashing into this giant barrier that they set up to basically catch the humanoid robots who can't slow down in time. But man, you look at these, and then also the funny part, after they crash, there's two people hauling them away on a stretcher, which is just a funny part of the video.
I do enjoy that.
The next war between a superpower and anybody else is going to be pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, every war
like
is
more
disturbing.
than like any other?
I don't know. I suppose not, but these things are terrifying looking.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to get used to them in my lifetime.
It's not great. I don't like it, but this is where we're going.
Yeah, we are. And China kind of needs to, specifically if they are going to, I mean, the population decline that China is going to face over the next 5 decades is like nothing the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
And so this appears to be part of their long-term plan around creating and maintaining productivity and wealth, is have a army of humanoid robots that are able to do some of what the humans are in China. So I get the incentives, but man, is it just terrifying looking.
It's not great.
Running 100 meters at 7 seconds is a
9.3.
really fast robot. That is a really, really disturbingly fast robot.
If it were 9.7, I could probably take it.
Oh, got it. So 9.3 is
9.3
where you draw the line.
9.3 is the cutoff for me.
Yeah.
That's where I start to get nervous.
Yeah.
Got a piece in the New York Times. The Harry Styles superfan spending thousands to see him 15 times in a row.
How is this a story?
It's because people like to think that their consumption is better than someone else's. So,
you ever know somebody that's been to over 100 Fish shows? Because I
went to my first Fish show at Fenway a few weeks back, and one of the people I met saw them 68 times.
Yeah. Personally, not, haven't been to a Fish show. Not for me, but
fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Don't tell me that one super fan is bigger or better than another super fan.
No, or even look, so here's the lead. Starting this week, Harry Styles will play 30 shows at Madison Square Garden. If you just said, who's Harry Styles? Fine, got it. You don't know who he is. That's fine. Lindsey Burton, co-host of the podcast, What Makes You Fangirl, will be in the crowd for 15 of them. So he's going to half the shows in Madison Square Garden. All told, tickets cost her $6,196.87. Now, to the best of my knowledge, she hasn't stolen the money in order to pay for this.
Yep.
She hasn't, lied and committed fraud in order to, pay for this. She has spent her own money in order to do this. And while Harry Styles might not be for me, it's clear that she really enjoys these concerts and wants to see as many of them as possible, which is totally fine. I get it. There are plenty of things in the world that, if you think about it, are really dumb that we do. Like, one of the things that I do every winter is I go out to a mountain and I dress up in all the warm clothing I can. I put on really hard boots and 2 really long pieces of, probably carbon fiber or something along those lines at this point. And I spend 20 minutes getting up a mountain and then, 2 minutes coming down it. Really, really fast.
Idiot.
And within 45 minutes, I'm usually pretty cold, and I'm like, okay, this
and somebody pays you to do this?
No, I have to pay $100 a day to do this if I'm smart about it. And so most of the things that we do for fun, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, are kind of stupid. Like, even like, and again, I'm not saying this in a bad way. Like, music, I love music, but it's like you either are like hitting something really hard or strumming something. Like it's all, if you reduce it to like whatever, it's just noise, pun intended. So I think if someone really loves something and has the means to go and enjoy it as much as possible, whether it's music, golf, hunting, boating, fishing, tacos, I don't care what it is, have at it. That's all I got. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.